Greetings, everybody. 2020 is behind us. How many are glad 2020 is behind us? Well, I've got in the studio with me Dr. Hiltibidal. We'll bring him in just a second. And we're going to talk about what we think is coming in the year 2021. How many want to hear about that? How many think it's going to be better? How many of you think it's going to get worse? Well, you're about to find out. Now, I've got a little theme for us here for the coming year. My theme is this, and I guess the title of our program today is More to Come in 2021. Stay tuned. Well, this is Crossing the Spotlight. Brother Dan Goodwin here, my co-host and my partner, Dr. Charles Hiltibidal. We're going to talk about a subject that maybe people are not going to be so glad they watched. I don't know, but we're going to talk about what's coming in the next year, this 2021. Yes. And I've got a little theme that I came up with that I shared with you. More to come in 2021.
A lot of ways to take it.
Yeah. And I think, I'm like you, I think the worst is still coming.
I know it is.
And we think, well, we got 2020 behind us. Things can't get worse. They're going to get better. I think this bad stuff's still coming.
2020 might have been the seeds, but 2021 may be the plant.
Now, I think you've got a verse that you were going to read,
yes.
2 Timothy 3.
Yes.
Read that for us.
It says, "This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come." That's where we are.
That is where we are.
This is where we are. I'm convinced, as you've often said, we are at the end of all things. And I believe we are coming very, very near the moment of the trumpet sound.
Yeah. Of course, I get that from the famous Lord of the Rings movie series. Some people get mad at me about that.
Oh, well.
And I say, look, it's the most prophetic movie I've ever seen in my life. It really is. It's fiction. I understand that. But, the guy who wrote those books I believe C.S. Lewis won him to the Lord. The Lord of the Rings, I've lost his name all of a sudden. But
I don't know it.
At the end of the movie where they've thrown the ring in and they're out on this rock, and he looks over to Sam, Frodo, he looks over to Sam and he says, "Here we are." He says it a little different. I say it differently, but he says, "Here at the end of all things." Mm-hmm. Of course, I always say, here we are.
At the end of all things, yes.
And, of course, that was the Battle of Armageddon in the movie. That's the Battle of Armageddon scene. And here we are at the end of all things.
We're very near. We are very
close
near it all. Yes.
To that. So I asked you to come up with some things that you see coming. Mm-hmm. I also came up with a few. I found that we talk about some of the same things, but we come at it at a different angle.
Different way.
So I think we'll merge these in together a little bit. I thought we'd start with you, some of the things, and I'll ad-lib a few times. But first thing you talked about was some super soldiers here. You want to start off with that?
Well, I think we are going to watch and observe as what I believe is the main king out of the kings of the East. Toward the end of the tribulation period, there's going to be the kings of the East come riding in.
And that's Asia.
Asia, and I think the main leader of that, as we would all see today, is China. And China has just developed, they just released it, I don't know how long ago, but they are spouting, and evidently from our own military leaders, it's a fact, they now have developed the world's fastest computer. Last year, Google developed one that was a million times faster than any regular computer. This one is 1 trillion times faster. And they just released it. And they are working in the areas of genetics with a CRISPR program. The CRISPR program is where you are able to cut a gene and splice genes together. They really think that they can eliminate disease and all of this thing. But what China is now doing is they're not just doing this in the laboratory, but they're doing it inside the body itself. They now have developed a way to be able to enhance genetics, splice and put them together with the CRISPR program inside the body. Their goal is to produce super soldiers for the battlefield.
Yeah, and they're usually not along the humanitarian area.
That's the thing. See, we're in our world here, we're limited, and we should be limited. We have rules that have been passed through legislation that guard how far we can go in these areas. But many of the nations of our world, including China, they do not have the restrictions that we have. And they're just full-blown at it. They already are cloning a 100,000 milk cows in one of their plants. They clone 100,000 milk cows every year. These cows eat less food and produce more milk, and they're all cloned from the same DNA genetic code. They're already doing all of these things, and now their goal is to do it with their soldiers.
Now, explain to the viewers that you're not talking about man creating a life.
No.
Explain that.
So nobody can create life, but they can certainly alter it.
Right.
And that's exactly what they're doing. Their goal is, and a lot of people are afraid of the vaccine now because a lot of information, probably misinformation, have come out about it altering the DNA of humanity. We need to understand that our soul and spirit is not really a part of our DNA of the body. But anyway, the CRISPR program, combined with the ability of the computer system, technology blending with biology, is going to produce what they call superhumans or super soldiers.
Yeah,
They're not the only ones pursuing this. Many countries are pursuing it.
And I have heard on some other networks, other programs, I've heard people talk about that when you mess with a person's DNA, they're no longer human and they can't be saved. You don't believe that?
No way.
And you answered that already. They're talking about the body.
The body and the soul of a man is not the same.
Right.
We are an eternal entity living or tabernacled in an earthly vessel. The Bible often talks about our earthly vessels, and the Bible talks about tabernacling, and that's all we're doing as an eternal being. We're being tabernacled temporarily in time in this earthly body.
Now, you mentioned along this same line something quite political here. You said many of our politicians and institutions of higher learning, colleges, I guess,
yes, universities,
are under Chinese control.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little bit.
It comes out almost every week. Another politician who's got some investments in China, who has something to do with this communistic China project over here, and then almost every week, something else comes out of some university that didn't relate. They didn't put it on the paper that they got X number of millions of dollars for a project from China. It's all over the educational system and the political system. China has been subtly, through their communistic plan, subtly eating away on the inside where nobody could see it, and now it's starting to come out.
And, of course, President Trump has said for several years that China has
He's
been
exactly
stealing
right.
our stuff.
They could not have built their supercomputers had they not stolen the information out of the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. But see, Silicon Valley, they're all tied in it. All your big tech giants are all tied into it.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. I'm not sure they're stealing it.
No, they're all tied into it because they bring all of those people over here to do research together. And that's why right now many of your programs, your Facebook and YouTube and all of them, they're following the same format of China of limiting information to the people.
All right. Now, you mentioned another one here that's quite interesting concerning the Abrahamic Accord that was just signed. And you stated it this way: the increase of a supposed normalization for the Middle East through this Abrahamic Accord.
Yes.
And you talk about setting the stage for Ezekiel 38.
For Ezekiel 38, yes. Well, in Ezekiel 38, he talks about how that they'll be living in unwalled villages or without the need of fences that they have now. And so the Abrahamic covenant is providing a platform where folks will feel comfortable, because I just read yesterday where Netanyahu was saying there are many Arab nations getting ready to sign on to this thing. Well, we understand that it's really not a peace deal. It's really an economic forum. But the idea is it's building that platform of a supposed peace with our Arab neighbors. And all it's doing is, in 2021, we're going to see that continue to progress, setting the stage for that feeling comfortable until all of a sudden it collapses.
Yeah. And so here we are. We got, you see a big move of China in this coming year. The Super Soldiers Project.
Well, the China thing, I mean, anybody can easily Google World Health Organization in China, and you can see them meeting together, having meetings together before this corona thing came out. I'm telling you, this whole thing is...
They've been given a pass.
They've been given a pass. Not only that, they've been lauded for the great job they've done in containing it. My soul.
Yeah, they didn't even tell us.
No. But if you're either intimidated by it or you're on the financial dole of this thing, you're going to go along with it. You know, people say, hey, science says it. Wait a minute. Science hasn't said anything. What they don't understand is this, and people, you need to understand this. I have a little bit of an insight on this by working with Creation Evidences Foundation and the research there. I'm here to tell you that the scientists that are involved in pushing all of these things are the scientists who are involved in programs of research that get their funding from the government. And if you're getting your funding for research, which is millions of dollars, you're not going to come up with something that's going to hurt you getting your money.
Now, as you mentioned that, the global warming stuff.
Oh, that's all it is.
They talk about the hundreds of scientists who have signed on to this thing. And the truth is, and I heard the weather station guy, the guy who started the weather station.
I know, yeah.
He's no longer owns it, but they brought him on CNN one time. He was amazing. He was yelling at him. He said the reason all them scientists sign is because they're getting money.
They're getting money.
They're not going to not sign because they'll be cut off.
That's exactly
from the money.
right. Yeah. Well, it's just like this COVID thing. I saw a document the other day. 10,000 doctors in the world, not 1,000. 10,000 doctors, immunologists, and researchers that have signed a document saying that this COVID thing is not as bad as the seasonal flu.
And they won't even make the news.
It doesn't even make the news. 10,000 of them.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go to another one here. Talk about the decline of morality in the West.
Wow.
You see it getting worse.
I see it getting worse.
Get worse than what it is?
Well, depending on the administration, and maybe by the time this views, we will know, but I'm not certain. But under Mr. Biden, we will go back to what it was before President Trump, and it'll be a full taxpayer abortion on demand all the way up to the age, to the day of birth, and maybe even beyond that, the way they're acting. We're watching the stage being set for pedophilia that used to be outlawed and you went to prison for. We're seeing the age limits in states coming down for consent between an adult and the age of the person. They'll get it down to 12 and then to 10 and whatever.
Absolutely wicked.
It's absolutely wicked. Then they're going to be this year, they've already started, but in 2021 they're going to be pushing polygamy. And I think the word is molygamy. I'm not certain of that, but I saw a picture yesterday of 3 men. I'm not talking about 3 women married to a man in polygamy. I'm talking about 3 men as a supposed union raising their children. They're going to be pushing for these things.
Instead of a husband and a husband, it's a husband and 2 other husbands.
It's a husband and I don't know. Do they call themselves husbands? I don't know what they call themselves. But anyway, I can only see that on the entire world stage, this moving forward. Part of that COVID relief bill they tried to pass a couple of weeks ago with the Congress, they were sending how many millions of dollars to Pakistan for transgender training? It's what it's all about right there. And I see the entire world moving more and more into a moral abyss.
Yeah.
It's not going to get better. It's going to require God's people to be willing to say, hey, the Bible has said, and stay with the book, and say what's right.
And who opened the door to this? A Republican Supreme Court Justice named John Roberts.
That's exactly right.
With his
stroke of a pen,
tie-breaking
yes,
vote to allow
and changing
marriage.
The wording. That wasn't even what the case was all about. But he turned it around and made it a tax, and not a tax. Oh
now,
yeah,
you're talking about the Obamacare.
Yeah,
right. The Obamacare. That was a different one.
Oh,
but
okay.
Before that, he's the one who.
Oh, true.
When Obama was president.
But all of us tied together in the same Obamacare. But yeah, absolutely.
He gave us same-sex.
And he's the one who's held this thing up in the courts concerning the fraud of the election. He's the one behind all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Folks, you're watching Crossing the Spotlight, Brother Dan Goodwin and Dr. Charles Hiltibidal. This very depressing stuff we're talking about is what we see coming.
But it's truth and reality.
Year. Right. And there's no sense lying to people. There's no sense saying, look, everything's going to get better now that 2020's passed. 2020 set the stage.
It set the stage.
For the next curtain being drawn.
That's right.
And the next act. That was Act 1. This is Act 2 coming
Act 2.
And we don't know if there's an Act 3 or not.
I don't know.
This could be it. And we're calling this More to Come in 2021.
It is.
And let me share just one or two little things here, and then we'll get back to some of yours here. More to come in 2021. I see this. I see the cashless society coming upon us more quickly than before.
Exactly right, Dan.
The COVID thing seems to be the catalyst for this whole thing. Yeah. And, you
don't touch that
you
money.
have to touch that money. You have to handle it. Don't you get a kick out of it? You go through the drive-through. They all got their mask on and their plexiglass.
And their gloves.
And their gloves on. And you pass them your credit card or your money. Yeah. And they touch that. Now, they've already touched 25 others before you got in line all day with the same gloves.
Yeah.
And I'm not against that. I'm just saying how stupid this is, what we're doing. We think we're stopping the spread of something. It's the same glove that's touching everybody's credit card.
What's the difference between that and your finger?
And they touch the bags and everything. And look, open the restaurants and let's stop this nonsense. But all that to say this, it's another step or another push.
Yes, sir.
To get rid of hard currency.
Yes, sir.
There's lots of reasons they can come up with, theft and drug buys. If they can get rid of currency, cash, they can trace the digital money. Nobody can buy drugs with it because they'll get caught. But you know what? There'll always be the black market. There'll always be a way to barter and trade and make transactions happen. But I see the cashless society rapidly getting here.
Rapidly, yes.
Now, we're already a cashless society, but we still have cash. We have both. The truth is we're already digital. The whole money system is digital.
The whole money system.
It's all tied with the nations of the world.
Yes, sir.
I've been doing eBay for years. I'm a guitar fanatic. I buy and sell guitars sometimes, nice Martins and Gibsons. And when I've sold guitars to Moscow in Russia on eBay. You know, that guy doesn't run down to his bank and changes rubles into dollars. He presses a button and he buys it. It's all done instantaneously through the computer.
Yes, sir.
And he spends rubles, but it's dollars when it gets to my bank. It's already digital. It's already tied together.
Do it anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
And same way with credit cards.
Sir.
I've been to other countries. I've been to Israel, and I've been to other countries. You buy something with your credit card, it automatically changes the dollars into the currency of whatever country you're in. It's just automatic. You don't even have to figure it out.
So you mean we're not waiting for a tribulation coin to be printed?
No. And all this, you and I know what the end looks like because we can read the tribulation is spelled out for us in the Bible.
Right,
we can see it there. And we see the cashless society. We see that the mark of the beast, no man can buy or sell unless he has this mark. It has to be a digital system.
It is.
And
artificial intelligence has to be in part of it.
Yeah. And so we can see that that's there. Yes. And now we can see that we're rapidly headed there before the rapture. Yeah. And we are.
Well, before COVID hit, it was already set up, but this was a catalyst to launch it.
we had that hack recently. They said it was Russia, but Trump has sent us a few little warnings that it may not be Russia, it may be China.
More like China.
But they hacked all these different systems. And so we can see what's coming. The cashless society is coming. The digital
Absolutely.
system is here.
Yes, sir.
The stock market, I can see maybe a crash coming sometime in the future. I hope not, but
It's very probable.
I mean, it just goes up.
I know
and
there are
up and up.
there are a lot of guys in prophecy that really believe that the economy of the world is going to be really good and all of that. I'm not so sure that I buy into that. I think that one of the reasons for the major deception for the Antichrist is he's going to be a man that can cause craft to prosper, and he's going to share the booty with the world. I think he's going to be able to come on after a crash of the world and bring it around into his benefit.
I see the chip implants taking off at a much greater rate.
Yes.
It's almost like a fad now. Everybody wants it. The young people love it. They think it's greatest thing since sliced bread.
Well, they're being indoctrinated from little children by watching it on Netflix and other cartoons. They're already being indoctrinated to them. Then you got the crowd that's been to the university. They know so much now.
Well, look, we're not saying it's a sin. It's not a sin to get an implant, to get a chip put in you.
And that's not necessarily the mark of the beast.
Right. It's a prerequisite.
It might be leading. All of these things are just on the road to the way to the mark of the beast.
If the government's involved somehow and they can track you or trace you, do we really want that? Have we not been paying attention for the last 4 years about what's been going on with the government? Do we really trust them to have our pertinent information and to have all of our personal information, know everywhere we go, everything we buy, everything we do, every movie we watch? Do we really want the government to have access to all that? What's wrong with us?
And here's the thing. We're the safest of the nations of the world with it.
Yeah.
And if we're at this condition, you can only imagine the condition of the rest of the world.
Yeah. So, chip implants containing all your health information.
Yes.
Look, when the time comes to, it's time to not waste time on the old people anymore, the people over 70. The chip will let the government know and the doctors know, oh, this guy has just crossed the line. He's now in that red zone. We better bring him in and check him out. If he's in poor health, he needs to be, he's a drag on society. Now, you think I'm joking here. This is real. This is
real, folks.
It's already in, what, is it Sweden?
Sweden.
They're already killing off the old people there. They're a drag on society. They're no longer useful to society. Do we trust our government to determine who's useful and who's not? They already told us our churches were non-essential.
Right.
Well, actually, our pastors told us that, for the most part. Pastors got up and locked the door and determined that they were non-essential. And we've been non-essential ever since. And now listen, we got a few minutes left, and we're not going to get through this, so we'll do another show. But let's tell the audience a little bit about what to do with this. We're not trying to scare people. We're not trying to make you shake. And this is information. This is like Proverbs says, the prudent man seeth the evil coming afar off, and he hideth it. This is gaining knowledge so that we can be prepared. Yes. What's some things the audience needs to know?
Number one, as a believer, we need to spend more time every day in our Bibles.
Yeah.
Because the thing that's going to give you the courage that's necessary when you face these things, you're going to only get that courage from the Word of God. So it needs to be a daily walk with the Lord. I am convinced. I gave you a thought earlier that I picked up in a Sunday school class where I heard my pastor teach today. And we talk about rhinos, Republicans in name only.
Yeah.
And he made a statement about Christians in name only. And I thought, this is coming to a time, we've talked about this, but this COVID thing that we're passing through and what's getting ready to come is going to reveal the difference between true Christians and Christians in name only. There are a lot of people who claim to be Christian, but they've never been born again. And so, as a true believer, we're going to have to know the Bible, and we're going to have to be willing to may even have to pay the price for standing for truth. I wouldn't be surprised if in America we don't see penalties placed on preachers that preach on the truth of the Bible. We're seeing it in the rest of the world. We're just a little behind them, but it's coming.
Well, the government has got behind immorality.
Yes.
I mean, they're pushing it.
They're pushing it.
You know, the same-sex marriage, the
yes.
gender, whatever you call it. You
Yeah.
got to be careful whether you call somebody ma'am or Mrs.
Yeah.
or Miss. It's regardless what they look like, they determine their gender, and you could offend them. And the government's pushing this. They're teaching the schools. And
it's almost like, I tell this in my meetings often, it's almost like the political leaders have read the Bible, and when God says don't do this, they legislate that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. So I think, folks, don't take these things like, oh my, the whole world's falling apart. No, the whole world's falling into place for the end days.
Yeah, it is.
The pieces are falling together. And we don't have to be a part of the Laodicean world. Just because we live in the Laodicean age doesn't mean that we have to be a Laodicean Christian.
We're in this world, but we're not of it.
We're just pilgrims passing through.
So,
and why should we be the only generation, or why should we experience the only nation that for the last couple of hundred years have had such freedom, when the majority of the world and Christianity never had the freedom that we have had?
Yeah. So, number one, better make sure you're saved. That
Yes.
goes without saying. You better make sure you've trusted Jesus Christ
Absolutely.
as your Savior.
Yes.
And your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And when you die, you're going straight to glory. You better make sure of that. Better make sure.
If you need help, contact us. We'll be glad to help you with that.
And then, of course, make sure that you're growing in grace, reading the Word of God.
Reading the Word of God. And if you're not in a sound Bible-preaching church, you need to find one and get out of the churches that are mixed up with the things of the world. And there are a lot of them out there, Dan.
There's more of them than the others.
There
Of
are
course,
more
we're in
than
the
the-
Laodicean age.
But I'm here to tell you, there are sound Bible-preaching churches that you can find in your area. And if you need some help with that, let us know, and we'll try to help you find somebody in your area that can give you Bible to help you and your family.
And then on a physical nature, there's common things. We all ought to be prepared for a storm. Have some money in a can somewhere, not the bank, and have some physical cash, if we can still use cash. Be prepared for, just like you would be for a hurricane or a tornado. Have some necessities.
Have some.
Well, Doc, we're out of time.
Yes, again.
This has been fun. We're going to come back next week. Can you come back next week?
Yes.
Let's hit this again. We got about halfway through this.
Maybe.
I think. And all right, until next time, keep your eyes on them skies.